forgiving our dreams.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
tremendous.
It is, because like what we're experiencing right now is the waking part of the dream, right? But when we go to sleep, we're having the sleeping part of the dream. But it's all a dream. It's all made up. So pay attention to the content in your mind. You're essentially paying attention to the way that the separation idea is showing up for you through your waking and sleeping dreams. And that is always what needs to be forgiven. If you find yourself reacting fearfully, negatively in some way, that's your cue. You're taking the ego seriously, and that's where correction is warranted.
Speaking of dream, are you ready for a question?
Yes, I would love one.
Is the mind's job to make the dream, our everyday dream, better, or to realize that there is no dreamer to begin with?
Well, so the split part of the mind, the part that thinks it's the ego, would definitely try and convince you that this dream is real, right? So that's the ego's game, because the ego survives through your belief. So essentially, this split part of the ego mind is saying, this is real. You got to pay attention to this. Essentially, the ego wants you to forget that you are a mind. It wants you to think that you're a body and a complicated personality, because if the ego, if you recognize that you are a mind, you will recognize that you are a decision maker, and you can choose against the ego. So the ego part of the mind will always try and say, no, this illusion, is real. You're just a body. You're just this personality. You're all those problems, all in an effort to hide the fact that you are a decision-making mind that can choose against the ego. Never doubt that the ego is terrified of you and your decision-making ability. It's scared of you because you are powerful and you can choose against it and ultimately dissolve it. So there is that part of the mind that would say, yeah, I mean, it's the sleeping part of the mind. It did come from that mind. You are mind. And so it would say that. But the right mind, the part of the mind that has the Holy Spirit, your liaison to God, is saying, this is just a dream. You can wake up, turn to me. And through our consistent turning to the Holy Spirit, through our right mind, choosing for the Holy Spirit in that holy instant, I don't want the ego, I want the Holy Spirit's version of things. Through that consistent holy instant, choosing for the holy instant, turning to the Holy Spirit then comes in and reminds you that what you are dreaming is not real. It's an illusion. It reminds you of the truth, and then you start to remember. And it is through consistent use of your right mind that you come to oneness, that you come to remember God. So, when we look at the ego's use of the mind versus the Holy Spirit's use of the mind, two very different things.
So you were talking about the Holy Spirit, and that leads very nicely into the next question. If the Holy Spirit's voice is a bridge, does it exist in truth, or is it just a necessary illusion to help us undo the ego?
Well, so this is an illusion. So we're taught in the course that forgiveness in the realm of oneness is completely unnecessary. The atonement in the realm of oneness is completely unnecessary. So we can see the Holy Spirit absolutely as that bridge. But in essence, the Holy Spirit is, it's described in the course as the voice for God, but it's actually the memory of God in your mind. It's the memory of truth. So absolutely, in this illusion, we can see it as a bridge, but ultimately the Holy Spirit, when you get to that level of oneness, there is just oneness. The Holy Spirit is one in God. Your part of your mind is healed, and you remember your oneness in God. So it all comes back to oneness. But in the level of the world, we can absolutely see the Holy Spirit as a loving bridge, for sure. I think that's helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. When we were backstage, we were talking about healing, and we were also talking about collective healing.
Yes.
But of course, just like we were saying about, you can't go around dealing with effects, and we're thinking of these little effects.
Yeah.
At the same time, the larger issues that we see, they seem so big and they seem so overwhelming, but ultimately they're an effect too, right?
100%. Yeah. Do not be deceived. They are an effect of thinking that you separated from God. Yeah.
So no matter how big the problem looks in what we'd like to term the real world,
Mhm.
it still comes down to that one problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want to remember the miracle principle that there is no order of difficulty in miracles, because it's all just stemming from the one problem. And that's part of the ego's deception. Ooh, this problem's more extreme. Like, we could say that there's a massive difference between having a cold, and having cancer. In our experience, those seem to be two vastly different things, one more extreme than the other. But we're taught that there are actually just effects of thinking you separated from God. So yeah, it's up to us as course students. Like, Jesus does speak to that a lot. Try not to be deceived. Try not to be deceived. And if you find yourself, because I think what lends to the idea that there's a hierarchy in illusions is our reactions. More extreme events do raise up a ton of unconscious guilt and stir that up, and you find yourself enraged and all of that stuff. But that's still an ego reaction. That's still, coming from a place of ego. Now, it's not to say you can't feel those things, but you want to be cautious about what you do with those feelings. Feel them in a way that feels safe. Don't project it onto other people. But as a course student, you ultimately have to come to bring it back to, this is a projection of unconscious guilt from the collective ego mind. And my reaction is coming from my own unconscious guilt. When you forgive and that fear subsides, then you may be inspired to take action. If you have to pick up a sign and join in a cause, then do it with the Holy Spirit. If you feel inspired to do that, then feel inspired to do that. That's all good. Some people may want a more quieter approach and just feel more, inclined to, just look within and use it as an opportunity. Everyone's, again, going to handle these things differently, but you can, whatever you feel guided to do it with the Holy Spirit.
Um, I love the way that ties into the same as you were talking about with if you take medication, if you
Mhm.
get treatment,
Yeah,
it's okay. Do it with the
100%.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because you think the Holy Spirit's going to meet you where you're at. And right now you think you're a body with problems. And the Holy Spirit teaches through love. If your discomfort intensifies, that is not what the Holy Spirit is advocating. So if you need a little bit of magic to help, the worldly magic, to help yourself out and to lessen the fear in the mind, that's totally fine. Do it with the Holy Spirit, not a problem. But what I like to say then, also be sure to forgive. So let's say you have an infection and you need an antibiotic. Take the antibiotic. It's no big deal. Do it with the Holy Spirit, but also be sure to forgive the ego content beneath it. And that's it's something very easy that you can do very quickly. Just take 20 seconds, right? And do your thing. If it's more extreme, you might find yourself wanting to forgive a little more often about it. But make sure to tend to the mind, because that's where the error is actually occurring.